Have you ever noticed something strange about certain foods? You could easily eat an entire bag of potato chips, but a typical 7 to 8 ounce bag of chips contains around 1,000 calories. To get the same number of calories from plain baked potatoes, you would have to eat 5 to 6 of them. Most people would struggle to eat even 2 or 3 in one sitting. So the difference isn't willpower, it's not discipline, and it's not that one food simply tastes better. The difference is how the chips are engineered. In this video, we're going to look at the science behind ultra-processed foods and why they make it much easier to overeat. We'll also look at a controlled scientific experiment showing that people consumed about 500 extra calories per day simply by switching to ultra-processed foods. But before we look at how these foods influence appetite, we need to understand what ultra-processed foods actually are. Nutrition researchers often classify foods using a system called the NOVA classification, which divides foods into 4 categories based on how much industrial processing they undergo. The first category includes unprocessed or minimally processed foods. These are foods that remain close to their natural form or have only undergone simple processes like cooking, freezing, fermenting, or drying. Examples include vegetables, fruits, eggs, meat, fish, legumes, whole grains, plain yogurt, and nuts. The second category is processed culinary ingredients. These are substances extracted from whole foods and used in cooking to prepare meals. Examples include olive oil, butter, sugar, and salt. The third category includes processed foods. These foods are typically made by combining whole foods with ingredients like salt, oil, and sugar to improve flavor or preservation. Examples include cheese, canned vegetables, and freshly baked bread. The final category is ultra-processed foods. These foods are industrial formulations made largely from refined ingredients and additives like refined starches, added sugars, industrial oils, flavor enhancers, emulsifiers, artificial colors, and preservatives. Examples include soda, potato chips, candy, packaged ice cream, sugary breakfast cereals, packaged snack foods, fast food items like chicken nuggets and french fries, frozen dinners, and instant noodles. Unlike whole foods, these products are designed primarily for convenience, long shelf life, and intense flavor. They also tend to be more calorie dense, lower in nutrition quality, and their altered structure can change how our bodies digest and respond to them. Ultra-processed foods are often designed to be extremely flavorful. In fact, food scientists carefully combine ingredients like sugar, fat, salt, and refined carbohydrates in specific ratios. These combinations stimulate reward pathways in the brain. One concept researchers often discuss is hyperpalatability. Hyperpalatable foods stimulate the brain's reward system very strongly. When these foods are eaten, they increase dopamine signaling in the brain, which reinforces eating behavior. In simple terms, the way these foods are formulated can trigger cravings. The goal isn't simply to make food taste good, it's to make it almost irresistible. And when foods stimulate reward pathways so strongly while delivering large amounts of calories, overconsumption becomes much more likely. Another major reason ultra processed foods can lead to overeating is that they don't trigger satiety very effectively. Most of these foods are low in fiber, low in protein, low in water, very easy to chew, and digested very quickly. Because of this, they could be eaten extremely fast. And that matters more than most people realize. Satiety signals from the digestive system take time to reach the brain. But when foods are soft, calorie dense, and easy to chew, people can consume a large number of calories before the body has time to register fullness. Whole foods behave very differently. Foods like vegetables, legumes, eggs, fish, and whole grains contain fiber, protein, and more complex food structures. They require more chewing, take longer to digest, and are usually eaten more slowly. This slower eating allows the digestive system time to release satiety hormones that signal to the brain that enough food has been consumed. Some researchers have also suggested that when foods contain large amounts of calories but relatively few micronutrients, the body may continue signaling hunger in an attempt to obtain the nutrients it needs. I'll discuss that idea in more detail in a future video. Let's go back to the example we mentioned earlier. Why could someone easily eat a bag of potato chips, but probably wouldn't eat 5 baked potatoes? The difference comes down to several factors related to food structure and digestion. Whole potatoes contain fiber, water, and intact plant structures. Because of this, they require more chewing, take longer to digest, and trigger fullness signals more effectively. But when potatoes are processed into chips, several things change. The potatoes are sliced thin, fried in oil, and the natural structure of the food is largely broken down in the processing. As a result, the chips become more calorie dense, much easier to chew and eat quickly, and digested more rapidly. They are also combined with salt and fat, which further increase palatability. The result is a food that delivers calories to the body much faster than the brain's signals can respond to. And that makes overeating much more likely. Whole foods, in contrast, tend to regulate appetite much more effectively. They often contain more fiber, more protein, more water, and more complex structures. They also require more chewing and are usually eaten more slowly. All of these factors give the digestive system time to signal fullness to the brain. This may be one reason dietary patterns built around whole foods are consistently associated with better metabolic health. It's not just about calories, it's about how food structure influences appetite. In 2019, researchers of the National Institute of Health conducted a controlled experiment examining ultra-processed foods. Participants lived in a metabolic ward where researchers provided all of their meals, allowing the scientists to carefully control diets and accurately measure food intake. The participants were given 2 different diets. One diet consisted primarily of ultra-processed foods. The other consisted primarily of minimally processed whole foods. Importantly, the diets were carefully designed to contain the same amount of calories, protein, carbohydrates, fat, sugar, fiber, and sodium. Participants were allowed to eat as much as they wanted. Each diet lasted 2 weeks. What happened next was striking. When participants were eating the ultra-processed diet, they consumed about 500 more calories per day on average. Over the 2-week period, they gained about 2 pounds. They weren't told to eat less, and they weren't trying to diet. Their appetite simply regulated itself differently. It was because the structure of the food changed how full they felt and how much they ate. Overeating isn't the only issue with ultra-processed foods. They also tend to be lower in micronutrients, may negatively influence gut bacteria, and are associated with higher rates of chronic disease. But those topics deserve their own discussion. In another video, I'll explain how ultra-processed foods can dilute micronutrient intake and how that may influence appetite. But for now, the key point is this. Improving diet quality isn't always about trying to eat less. Often it's about eating foods that make it harder to overeat in the first place.